What is something that Reddit claims is common, but you've never actually seen it in real life? Story 1. I once knew a person who lived in South Asia who was surprised when I, an American, told him I am still close to my parents and see them regularly. He said TV, movies, and particularly the relationship subreddits made him think that all Americans permanently sever ties with their parents at age 18. Story 2. Being accosted as a single man at a playground. I've got 2 kids and have taken them to countless playgrounds, splash pads, parks, and all types of kid-friendly places. I've seen lots and lots of single men, but have never seen one get harassed. Story 3. A man cannot go to a restaurant, shopping, or a playground with his own biological children, or women will harass him, bully him for babysitting, and then call the police and frame him as a child molester. If you make the mistake of saying, "What the hell, that doesn't happen," they'll say, "Nuh-uh, this happened to a friend or a friend, so I know it happens," and you're blaming the victims. Story 4. Reddit thinks you can pick up a phone and get a lawyer like no big deal. Maybe that's true for personal injury or situations like that. But when I needed to go to war with my landlord, I couldn't find anyone who would take my money. I talked to probably 20 attorneys and paralegals to find we don't handle things like that. The only reason I found representation is because I already had a lawyer who happened to know someone she was kind enough to refer me to. Story 5. People working at the counter watching with bated breath to see if you put a tip on the screen, and then making a sad face when you don't. Never seen it in my entire life. I'm assuming the entire plane clapped when they hit no tip. People love making posts about being harassed for tips by a lifeless prompt on a screen, but I find it easy to just ignore it and just hit 0 when it doesn't make sense to add a tip. Story 6. In my experience, the worst people you'll ever meet or possibly even date will just be everyday-looking people. For instance, recently I met a girl who was 19 and was raped by a 17-year-old boy at a party. Her parents were so concerned with her hanging out with older boys, they never thought to question if people her own age could be just as dangerous. It made me realize that the things we worry about aren't the things that will hurt us a lot of the time. Reddit feeds us a lot of false ideas on the things we should be concerned with regarding people's appearance and behaviors. Story 7. Well, basically any of the relationship advice I see. It's always written by obviously single people who never understand that there's middle ground in every relationship argument. Hi Reddit. I like to play video games at a loud volume, but my girlfriend says it's hard to concentrate on a different room with all the noise. Everyone on Reddit. Leave that controlling bitch! Nobody should be able to ever tell you what you can and can't do. I was just going to ask what headset I should get. Story 8. People. Blowing up phones when drama happens. I'd get 2 of my siblings messaging me after family drama for gossip purposes, but having cousins, aunts, dogs-in-law blowing up phones doesn't happen. Story 9. Parenting marriage being a miserable experience. Most people I know or run into are pretty open about the ups and downs of family life and acknowledge that, there are tough moments, but we're also enjoying it as much as we can and doing our best with what we have. And this is from people that became parents on purpose and people like me who had happy accidents. Story 10. Something being mentioned as having happened and something being said as common are 2 completely different things. Usually what I see is person says thing happened, and then Redditors claim, nuh-uh, because they've never seen it. Story 11. I have never met someone who cares about the Kardashians. I haven't even seen that much advertising for them in real life, but people on Reddit will have you convinced that half of all people are brain-dead Kardashian lovers. Story 12. Men getting their lives ruined by false rape or DV accusations. Reddit guys always know a guy or have a friend of a friend. In real life, I've never met a man who has been affected by this. I have, however, met actual rapists and abusers who have evaded legal consequences for various reasons. Some of them even bragged about it. Story 13. ADHD denial or discrimination. A lot of people on the ADHD subs say that they've been fired because they disclosed to their employers that they have ADHD or have encountered any number of people who claim ADHD isn't real and their parents just should have spanked them more when they were kids. I was diagnosed with ADHD 27 years ago when I was 11 years old, and I've brought it up to damn near everyone. No one has ever told me it's not real. And every employer I've ever had has been super understanding and supportive of it. Story 14. Strangers coming up and saying concerned things to or about a man with female children. I have daughters and I've taken them everywhere without mom. Parks, movies, the mall, amusement parks, shopping, hell, I've taken teenage girls dress shopping for school dances, basically anywhere you'd take kids. I've taken entire groups of preteen and teen girls to putt-putt, go-karts, water parks, and many other places. You know how many concerned people have said something to me? 0. You know how many have said nice things or isn't that cute? A few, but way more than 0. That thing about dads not being able to take daughters anywhere is a horribly overdone trope. So, par for the Reddit course. Story 15. I think you'll need to realize so many posts and comments are fake AF. They get upvoted because of shock value, and too many of you are falling for BS stories and end up getting emotionally charged over an idea. Story 16. That if you call the police, they will show up and immediately arrest whoever you accuse, and that person will of course be convicted and sentenced to jail. Just because someone's committed a crime does not mean the police will arrest them. Law enforcement rarely ever intervenes in personal disputes. They do not care about theft or any non-violent event involving your family, friends, roommates, or relationships. Even if it is violent, unless someone is dead, they don't really care. Their 5 favorite words are, sounds like a civil matter. That's what civil court is. You are paying the state to pursue justice. The state very rarely will spend its own resources on your behalf. In almost every advice thread involving a potential crime, the top comments are always, go to the police. This is a felony. It doesn't fucking matter, LOL. Cops are not obligated to pursue a crime even if you can prove it occurred. I just want young people especially to have a realistic understanding of how law enforcement works in the US at least. It's a generally corrupt system and they are not fair or just. Story 17. This might just be because I'm autistic and life is different in general for me, but people going to parties, like how the fuck does a party happen? How do you magically get invited? What the fuck am I supposed to do at a party, and how do you socialize? Like, I legit don't understand how you just magically get to know someone who then becomes a friend. It's weird. Like how you gotta talk to people about things, but there's not just a guidebook about what to say. It feels weird and unnatural even. Story 18. Women's public restrooms being some kind of horrible, disgusting mess. I always see people on Reddit claim that you might think it would be the men who are gross, but actually it's the female restrooms which have piss all over the seats from people hovering and discarded period products everywhere or whatever. Literally never seen it in 30 years of being a woman and using public restrooms. I'm sure there are some gross public bathrooms out there, and I can't speak on the comparisons to men's restrooms, but I've personally never seen anything like that. Story 19. People losing their minds and getting into verbal or physical altercations in public. I don't doubt it happens. I've seen tons of videos of it. If I based my worldview on what I see on Reddit, I'd never leave the house, but in my world where I live, I've never seen that happen. That being said, I did see a guy holding his bleeding neck from a gunshot wound wandering down the street, so there's that. Story 20. Awful people. Yes, there are many awful people, but they are a really small minority compared to all the nice people there are. Same with politics. Just because someone is a Republican or a Democrat doesn't mean they will act one way or another. People are usually nice or at least indifferent. Not many people go out of their way to be awful to absolute strangers. On the same note, extreme dating standards, most women won't only dare 6'5" extremely attractive guys, and not all men just date supermodels. But yeah, who would have guessed that you can't generalize billions of people into stereotypes accurately? Story 21. Everybody's parents are toxic, narcissists, literal fascists, and want to destroy them. It exists for sure, but the vast majority of parents genuinely do want the best for their children, though the channels of expressing it vary from one family to another. Or, I'm a nice, hardworking, generous, cool person, but all of my friends and/or co-workers hate me for no reason whatsoever. Again, it happens, but it's not common. Story 22. Carrying a lawfully concealed handgun in an appendix carry that is in the waistband nestled right next to your genitalia. For that matter, having a handgun with mounted red dot sight and a mounted light. I live in a rural county with a lot of gun ownership and a concealed carry permit-friendly sheriff's office for decades, and have never seen nor heard of any such IRL. Story 23. Anytime there's a thread on sleeping naked, the top comments are always, but what happens when people break in and you're naked? Where do you people live where people breaking into your house is a genuine concern? Move away from that area. I know break-ins do happen, but still, Redditors think it's like a part of regular life to have to confront a meth head breaking in at night. It isn't. Story 24. I take my kid to the park, I go to the grocery store, I eat at local restaurants downtown, and I have yet to see anyone taking their cat girl for a walk. I haven't spotted one in the wild, suffering from neglect and in need of head pats as all the videos show. I haven't had to chase any away from my trash can at night because I forgot to rinse out the milk jug. Story 25. Splitting checks into equal parts. I have only ever gone out where each person/family paid for their own meals, unless it's a special occasion and someone picks up the tab. I'm not ordering a water and salad and paying $50 when Brenda bought a steak and appetizer. I'm paying for my meal. Story 26. Compulsive lying. People lie sometimes in real life, and there certainly are compulsive liars out in the wild. You will run into them at some point, but Reddit is overflowing with them. It's a platform that doesn't require anyone to prove they are who they say they are. People constantly claim they are a doctor or something along those lines in order to push an agenda, or karma farm. As a ___ person myself, or as someone with a ___ degree. Story 27. That San Francisco Bay Area has devolved into a lawless no man's land with homeless on every corner, and a car is broken into every 3 seconds. I lived up by Eddie and Gauf and walked everywhere, including the TL. Sure, it smelled, but it's a city, what do you expect? I've seen poop, but rarely, and TBH, I'm not sure if it was human or dog. I've seen very few people shooting up on the sidewalks. Maybe 2x at most, and nobody ever harassed me while I'm out. SF is a city with typical city problems, and that includes homelessness, NIMBYism, high rent, etc. It is not out of control. I suspect a lot of what we see on here are posted by Redditors who don't even live in SF or even the Bay Area. Story 28. As a man, getting weird looks from people when interacting with children in public. I've never once experienced this, and I've been a true greasy fat loser at some points in my life. Even with the, that guy is probably a Reddit mod style, it never happened to me. It makes me concerned and a little grossed out by what an average Redditor is like offline, with so many of these guys being unable to interact with children without getting in their own heads about being creepy. Story 29. Talking about divorce, and suggesting divorce by commenters, after something somewhat trivial. People in real life actually sit and talk through their issues and come to some resolution/compromise. That's life and that's love. Instantaneousness should not be a goal for things of substance. Story 30. That everyone always cooks at home every meal, and it's a big thing if you go out and eat at a restaurant. I do not know a single person who cooks at home more than they eat out on a long-term basis. The only time this happens is in bursts of eating healthy or saving money. Maybe if you are extremely poor, and I don't mean struggling, I mean very, very poor. You might eat at home every day out of absolute necessity. But other than that, the overwhelming majority of people who claim they don't eat out are just fucking liars. Story 31. I live in a red state and lean left on most issues, and I don't get assaulted for voicing them. Sure, people might disagree with me, but at the end of the day, most people are just trying to get through their day and get home to their families. The really nasty political discourse we see all the time online is mostly just terminally online people. Story 32. It seems relative to me. I grew up in a mostly Cambodian city for the bulk of my adult life. 3 or even 4 generations living in the same home and supporting one another was not unusual at all. The idea that I would stay in a hotel when I went to see my parents amazed them. To be honest, I was envious of that family's relationship. Story 33. That women are all looking for rich, tall men to take care of them. I have so rarely known a woman with this mentality. My friends, no matter how pretty, have dated guys or all heights, and none of them have ever said they wanted someone to financially support them. According to Reddit, though, that's all women. Story 34. A few things. I've never been catcalled. Closest I've ever gotten was some guys driving by and just screaming. They were high schoolers. I was in 8th grade. Sarcastically yelled back, and that was that. Had one guy try and take an awkward evening too far. I slapped him hard in the shoulder, firmly told him to get out, and he did. He'd say hi to me every time we saw each other, but I never engaged with it. I also feel like finances are skewed. I know that there are some luck factors involved. I had funds for college from my grandparents, so I didn't need to take out loans until later. Also lucked into a job with amazing benefits. However, my brother-in-law has been unemployed for 6 months now, and Reddit logic is they should be out on the street. They're not, and I don't think they're horribly at risk of being so. Story 35. Bacon is my personality types who talk about how they're harassed on every side by militant vegans, Personally, I haven't encountered any vegans airing a load of AR-15s to go mushroom hunting, but maybe that's what's so scary. What if the reason I never see any of them is because their camo is just that good? Terrifying. I can see why the Baconators have to constantly vacillate between jokes about how vegans are anemic and sobbing to the internet about the malevolent threat of vegans who are incapacitated by Campbell's chicken noodle.